Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. This is how to build a homestead part 4. So if you haven't seen part 1, 2, and 3, they will be down in the description. They are kind of prerequisites for this. It will help you, but you could watch this video and not need either of those parts. Today in part 4, we are doing this in a timeline fashion. And today we are up to the portion where you have purchased a small farm, a homestead, a blank piece of land. You have made the jump. You have put your money where your mouth is, and you have bought a piece of land that you are now going to build or start a small farmer homestead. So parts 1, 2, and 3 were all of the prerequisite things you should be doing, what you can do where you're at now, what you should be looking for in the land that you are about to purchase. But today, moving forward, you got the land, now what? That's where we're at. So stick around, we're gonna go through it all. As we get started today, thanks for watching. If you haven't seen those videos, they are very helpful and they will lead you in the right direction. If you are at this point, you're ready to buy land and you haven't watched those, you could be making some mistakes if you don't follow those the pieces of advice ahead of time. It will at least give you a better perspective before you buy our piece of land. But today, we've bought a piece of land, okay? And my poor drawing here, I'm gonna show this. And there's lots of different things going on when you buy a piece of land, and it's really hard for me to make this video because there's so many different things, whether the topographical is different from place to place, the location and temperature is different. What you bought, did you buy blank land? Did you buy some wooded, some pasture? Does it have a house? Does it have a barn? There's so many different things. So as we talk about today, what I think are the most important things to do first, if it's already done in the property that you purchased, just check the box and move on. So in my drawing here, I have a piece of property. It's kind of a weird shaped. The green is gonna be some wooded area. This square is an open pasture up top. And then we have our access, and we're gonna say that on this south point is our road. So you've got your piece of property. What is the very first thing you need? As we get started, number 1 is access. You have to be able to access your piece of property. You just made an investment, you bought a piece of property. Can you get up to where the house is, where you're gonna build a house, where whatever it would be, wherever your main part of your homestead is gonna be, can you get to it? So we need to have good access to our property. Now for most of us, this is just a simple driveway. You put a driveway off your road and you get in. But when I say access, it has to have a few things. You simply cannot just have an old grass lane or a roughed in driveway, okay? That is not completing access. You need to completely complete quality access to this property before you move on to the next thing. So what does that mean? It means a heavy duty driveway, okay? My example here is a concrete truck. Whether you're gonna bring concrete in or not, this driveway needs to be able to hold up a concrete truck. Concrete trucks don't turn very wide, they're very heavy, they can't climb super steep grades. Maybe if you're in Tennessee, they have four-wheel drive trucks, but out here they have two-wheel drive trucks most of the time. So it can't get stuck. A concrete truck has to be able to get in and turn around and come back out of your property, meaning you need probably 6 inches of good stone. I recommend geotextile fabric underneath the drive. If it's in there, if you already have the driveway established, maybe this is just topping the driveway, but either way, you need a heavy-duty driveway for future access, right? You're gonna be bringing in equipment, you're gonna be hauling animals, you're gonna be bringing in materials. You need a good driveway that you do not have to fight, that is not gonna get people stuck and not gonna get people stuck back on the property. They have to be able to turn around a big trailer, those types of things. So plan a heavy duty drive. Second portion of this is it has to have a wide entrance. So thinking about swinging a 30-foot trailer or even a semi, you have to be able to swing in and out of your property. So typically what I recommend is 32 feet of culvert. We buy 16-foot culverts here, whatever size. Most people pick 12 or 16 inches in diameter. Double-walled poly culverts are good, and we use a lot of those here. You have to check your local regulations for what you need, but I recommend 32 feet. The standard is probably 20. The average person puts in a 16 to 20 foot culvert on a normal house. But for a farm, a homestead, you need a wider entrance so that these bigger objects can come in. I want to talk about that. If you put 32 feet, your driveway could look like this if this is the road. If this is a 2-lane road. So my driveway is going to be 12 foot wide, and at the road I put two 16-foot culverts. You really end up with about 30 feet because you have about 2 feet sticking out each side that water will run in this culvert. But if you're 2-lane road, you can make this wider on both sides. But if you're like me, I live on a dead-end road. So there's really only one way out of my driveway I ever go. You want your driveway offset. So the driveway, if we're going this way on our road, our dead end is that way, so the way out is this way. We're gonna widen the way that we're typically gonna turn out so that we can swing. Usually I recommend a 3 to 4 foot width wider than our driveway on the opposite side, and then all of the extra room goes on the side that you're typically gonna be turning to swing in and swing out with whatever implements, trailers, things that would come in and out of your property. The last thing on access is weatherproof. This access has to be weatherproof. So what do I mean by that? It's not a huge deal if you have flat land. You can simply put the driveway in as long as it's a couple inches higher than the yard and it fades out. You're probably fine. The weather's gonna rain on it. It will need topping with other gravel or whatever you decide to put in. But if it's a hill, you cannot have the gravel end up on the road every time it rains. If your driveway washes out and it's steep, you need to complete that. You need to fix that. It needs to be beveled in the center and have a ditch on each side to take water away from your driveway so that you're driving here and that the water does not wash out the driveway. Now this may seem like, man, you're really overkilling this driveway, this access in, but if you don't get this right day one as you start, you're gonna constantly be coming back and working on this. Ask me how I know. So my very first farm, it wasn't a lot, but from the road it had about a 12-foot incline over about 100 feet to get onto the property. Didn't seem that big when we bought the property. We put some gravel on it, didn't seem like a big deal until we got an inch of rain within about an hour. And all of my brand new gravel ended up on the road. There were no ditches on this place anywhere. And as I talked to neighbors, started to build community, they let me know it's been a problem for 20 years. Well, I didn't notice it when I bought the property. So then we spent weeks excavating, taking off dirt, making ditches, making the driveway go to the side, putting in all these extra culverts, and increasing this so we didn't have to go back and fix that every time it rained, every time it snowed. So getting that driveway, that access point, weatherproof is very important, and you need to do that first thing. The second thing you need to do is secure your asset that you just purchased. So you bought this land, whatever is on it, I want you to start thinking of these next few things through this lens of securing my asset. What I just paid money for, I need to secure it. Now, I'm not talking about, cameras and big gates and people coming in and breaking. There's a little bit of that, but I'm not necessarily talking about that. Let's talk about protecting this asset that you just purchased. What is the biggest thing that you just purchased? When I think about it that way, the hardest thing for me to build on my brand new property is soil, okay? Soil takes a long time to build. The microbiology, the correct nutrient balance in the soil, and it can erode away, whether it's water, whether it's air and dust taking stuff away, whether it's simply the sun just baking the top of soil and killing the microbiology in it. You bought a piece of property. That soil is your asset, and it is the hardest thing to build. The slowest thing you'll probably ever raise on your farm is soil. So the very first thing I would do is protect my soil. So how are we gonna do this? We're gonna cover it, okay? So whatever it would be, whether we're gonna go ahead and seed pastures down day one, whether we're gonna put in an annual crop, so a rye, a wheat, whatever, just something forage-wise growing, sorghum, whatever it would be. You're gonna simply get something growing, and I would recommend the cheapest and easiest thing quickly. So if that's letting somebody else lease it and tell them you only want them to raise wheat or rye and they come in and they no-till it, whether it's broadcasting a pasture seed, You can broadcast wheat, you can broadcast rye, you can broadcast annuals. An annual is a very good idea for the first year, but something green needs to be covering every inch of the property that is open so that water and work that's going to be done and all these kind of things does not leave your soil, move your soil off the property. It doesn't leave on the tires of trucks. It doesn't leave with the water as it flows away. The soil is the very first thing that I would be work to build on my farm after I have access to it. As I've consulted with people, this is something that they delay on sometimes. They are under this impression that they don't want to do things twice, and I am all about this. If you're picking up dirt, put it where it needs to be, because I hate touching stuff twice as I excavate. But people delay this covering the soil for a few reasons, and they'll say, I'm not going to do that right now because we're going to log and they're just going to tear it up. Or we have an area where an excavator is going to come in and dig a pond, they're going to tear it up, so we're going to wait until that is done to then seed everything. I am telling you, this is wrong. I've seen it happen way too many times. The logger doesn't show up in time, they're going to tear up no matter what they do. The excavator doesn't show up. You bought this property, you didn't seed it, like I said, day one or week one, and here it is 6 months later, and you still don't have that pond dug that you waited for, and your soil is now washing away. It is not that entirely expensive to seed down. Let's say this is 10, 20 acres. You might spend $50 an acre to get something cheap, seed-wise growing, a pasture, an annual, put down some triple 12. It doesn't have to be a great yielding crop. It just has to be something that's going to cover the soil, okay? You're not going to harm stuff. If you're going to log, seed it. And when they tear it up, you can reseed it later. If you're going to dig a pond and they tear up an area, fine. You'll reseed later. But every inch of this property needs to be green from day one, or you will be losing soil. The next thing we're going to do is protect whatever we purchased, okay? So our purchase of the land, so let me spell that out. Whatever was here when we bought the property raised the value of that property and you paid for it. So let's say there's an old barn, an old shed. What I would do is look at this, and I'm going to tell you how to cost evaluate this. You look at an old tobacco barn, say. These are very common in Ohio or in Kentucky. You buy a property, it has an old tobacco barn on it or an old shed on it, and it needs a lot of work, right? It's fallen over, the pillars are falling over, that kind of stuff. The roof is peeled off in a space. You need to protect that if you're going to keep that piece of, whatever building structure that is. So here's how I evaluate it. I get somebody out to help me if I don't know what to do, if you don't know what to do, to evaluate the cost to repair this building. We want to pour new pillars. It's leaning a little bit. We're going to straighten it back up. We're going to put a new roof on it. We're going to cover the sides in metal so that it's good to go. And this is going to cost X. Then I evaluate, okay, this size barn. These tobacco barns, they have really tall ceilings. I don't need that tall of a ceiling. So if I build a barn this size, I could deal with 12-foot ceilings, and that barn, brand new, would cost me X. If the cost to repair your barn is more than 50% of the cost to build it brand new, I would let it go. If I bought a farm with an old tobacco barn that was a 30 by 40 and it cost me 10 grand to fix it, I would probably let it go and let it out of my mind. I'd start posting it on Facebook for barn siding. Come take my barn siding. Scrap metal, you take it off and you can have it for $100. Get whatever little income I could out of it and just let the barn go. Old hewn beams are worth a lot of money because this is not your barn. You did purchase it, but you didn't design it. You didn't build it for you. It was there ahead. So you're always going to be adapting that barn to your needs if it's there. And you're always going to say, if I had done this right the first time, I would have built it like this for us. That will be a conversation for the next 30 years. And I'll tell you, if it's going to cost you 50% of that barn or more to fix it, it's better just to let it go and build what you want. Now I had this on my home property. If you've watched my channel very long, and we have a pretty big barn where our shop is. It is a 60 by 100. So the shop is a 60 by 60. It then has a couple lean-tos off of it and an extension off where we store hay, making it a 60 by 100 today. And that barn had very bad damage when we bought the place. It had termites in it. Had a guy out, the bug guy said it's gonna cost you $2,000 to spray, inject the ground, and kill all the termites, and that'll prevent and make the damage go away. There were a couple posts that weren't touching the ground. I was gonna have to fix those. And the board at the doorway was all rotted, so I was gonna have to replace all of that and fill that in. Ultimately, it was about $1,000 wood and labor from me, and then $2,000 to the bug guy. So in order just to secure it, just to keep it from falling down and having more damage. So $3,000 for a 60 by 70 at the time, I think it was, or 60 by 80 at the time, that was worth it. I spent the money day one, pay the guy to do it, come in, and I spent my focus there because I was securing my asset that I bought. But now, if I had somebody come out to that barn and they told me I was gonna have to spend $30K to fix that barn, to replace all these posts, I had to spray, their concrete was cracked, we were gonna have to re-level stuff and jack stuff, I would have let the barn go. I would have scrapped the metal off of it, I would have busted the concrete out and put it in waterways where we were having washouts. I'd have let the barn go, and I would have designed my own barn in that same location. Because I, still to this day, am saying, oh, I wish this was a little bigger, but it was what was here when I bought the property. So that's just how I evaluate purchases, buildings that I purchased. Now, what about a house? I will tell you that living in construction or living in a substandard living environment is very stressful on a family, a marriage, your kids, and it's not something that you want to do. So if you buy a piece of property and it has a home on it, that should be one of the very first things. We protect our soil. Now we're going to protect our purchase that we made. But I'm going to completely finish that house before I do anything else, before I build any new barns, before I build fence, all of that. I want the house to be livable, and I can come in and nothing needs fixed. I can sit down and relax and take a breath when I need to. If you go out and work yourself on a homestead, you focus on fencing and building and cows and all these other things, and then you have to come in and look at drywall patches and holes in walls and rooms without flooring and whatever the case would be in a fixer-upper, it's going to add a lot of stress to you, and you are not going to accomplish on the farm or homestead what you could when you were in a better mindset. So my recommendation is, before you ever get an animal, make sure your house is done. If you bought blank land, you get your access, you get soil, and now you're going to build that house. The house is going to be completed before you start working on homestead stuff. Now, this is just my recommendation from my personal experience and from my experience as I consult to help other people, because I have seen people quit. And so the whole goal of this whole series was to help people get past the 7 year of quitting the homestead. And one of the major things I see them quitting is, we can move into a nicer house in a neighborhood and not have all this work. It's a lot of work, and you're going to be in substandard living if you allow yourself to do this. If you allow yourself to put off the house and the family, secure your family first. I'm just telling you, it's what I've known. Now let's talk about building a home. So you're buying blank land, whatever it would be, you're going to build a home. If you are a person that cannot build your own home, so I'll tell you, I've built many homes, and there are parts that I sub out. I don't dig my own basements. I have a basement guy come in, he puts in the basement for me, he has the forms and all that. So there's things that I sub out. You don't have to be able to do every aspect. But if you're not able to general contract and do quite a bit of that home, you're gonna spend a lot of money. And so if you're saying, oh, I can't do any of those things, I don't have any of those skills, so I'm just paying somebody to build us a house, you're lacking skills that you're gonna need on this homestead and farm. Okay, so my recommendation would be, ask if you can help, whatever it would be. So every aspect of this build, you work for free, you help them frame. You take off as much work as you can to be there with them working for free. You're investing in yourself, in your education, even though you're not getting paid. You're learning skills that you're gonna need on this small farmer homestead. And not being harsh on you, but if you have none of those skills, if you can't fix anything there, you might wanna think about jumping into this at this point. You might wanna gain those skills before you purchase this land. Come to our farm, we've got our farm. I'm gonna let the housing situation go, and that's gonna be different for everybody, and you're gonna choose how big you build, what you do there with your house. But you've got access, everything is green, you've secured whatever was on the property that you purchased. The next thing is hopefully you got a survey when you purchased this property. And hopefully we're in the first 6 months. So that survey stakes are out there. If you're building a home and there's a section of the home that you're not doing, like the basement for me, this would be something I would do while my subs are in doing stuff that I can't do. I'm gonna go around to every survey peg at each corner of this property, everywhere that the property turns, and it's wood stakes in Ohio. I'm gonna drive 2 feet of rebar in the ground, leaving it stick up about 4 inches, and then over that rebar, I'm gonna put some 1 or 2 inch PVC, white PVC over that. So in my ground, I have markings forever of my survey. Everywhere that there was a survey stake put out, I'm gonna put one of those stakes in the ground to mark that out. Next, I'm gonna go around and put a fence post at every turn. So I might, on this side of the property here, I might have had 4 or 5 of those pieces of rebar, but I'm now gonna put a fence post at every point that the property changes directions, okay? So let's just say in this wooded area back here, that this point is super steep and that we will never build fence in this peak, right? So you're probably eventually gonna build the fence diagonally across here to keep in animals. So I'm probably gonna put a 3 to 4 inch post. I'm still gonna sink a post at the corner of my property and paint it white, even if fencing will never be there. Then I will put a fence post here and a fence post here, because later I'll build a fence across there so that I know that it's on the property line. Now that's how I would do it where I live, but please check your local regulations. If you build fence on property in Ohio, I'm allowed to build it on the property line. If in other areas, if you have to build it 100% on your property, if you have to leave so many feet, you need to look into those local regulations. So please, that's just how I would do it. Time-wise, I would say we are at least 6 months in, or to the first year, depending on how much you had to build at this point in this game. So we've got everything in that we've talked about. What have we made money? It doesn't seem like we're not getting animals yet. We don't have anything that's making money. We don't even have a garden yet. What are things that we're doing to make money at this point? And I want to talk about those so that you don't jump forward and rush into animals because that's where you think income comes from, that there was income being made during this time, or there could have been income made during this time. So a few things. Everything was green. You got stuff in an annual or in pasture, so that can be harvested, right? Whether that's having somebody come in and bale it and you selling bales, whether that's having somebody come in and harvest that wheat if you put it in wheat, or round bale the pasture and take that off your land. Now, some people will gig me on this and say you're just selling your nutrients away. And I agree you are a little, but the nutrients that are staying because you had something growing is better than leaving it blank and not selling nutrients away. You could bush hog it all down and leave all those nutrients there if you don't need the income, but that grass, that crop that you put in could have a little bit of income. The other thing is you have a lot of woods on this property. So in between those things, those jobs that I couldn't do on my house, that I was having somebody else doing, that's a very low equipment job, right? I can buy a chainsaw, I can buy a 4-wheeler and a little wagon, or I have a truck so I can buy a little wagon. And I'd go around and I'd start trimming trees. Everything on every edge I would trim up 10 feet. I'm gonna take out dead trees. I'm gonna pull out and burn briars and start cleaning our property up. But I now have firewood that I can sell. So you're not in your house or you're not heating wood or whatever you're gonna do yet, but there is firewood here to either be stored for you for the following year, or you can use that and sell that as part of an income because you're having to clean it up anyways. And you don't have to buy a lot of equipment to do that. I want you to notice, I still haven't said buy a tractor. So by this point, before I've really built anything big, I'm hoping that my house is done. My family is secure. We have a nice living environment. We found a church in the local area. We've made community with people. We've made connections with farmers that we had come in and bale. We made connections with people that we delivered wood to, or they bought wood from us. We've learned things. All the stuff that I talked about in the first 3 parts of this series. We come to this point, what can we do homestead-wise? We're at this point today. What do I recommend you do? So first off, I wouldn't get any large animal without my entire perimeter fence being complete. So perhaps that's the point that you buy a tractor, or you can have some higher fencing done, whatever you choose to do, and you can put in your outer perimeter fence only. We're not putting anything internally yet, just outer perimeter fence. But there are a few things that you can get ahead of time without perimeter fence. You can have a garden, it doesn't run away, right? You can build a greenhouse. You can do those things and provide food for your family from the land in those aspects. You can build a chicken tractor. You can have meat birds, you can have layers, and you got green grass growing. You can have those things without perimeter fence. You could have a rabbit hutch if that's something that you want to do. It's not in my wheelhouse, but those animals aren't going to run away. You can have something that secures those animals in that fashion. But sheep, goats, pigs, cows, anything else, I need perimeter fence in. So before I build a barn, before I get my first animal, the entire perimeter fence and some water access points needs to be in. So we have secured our assets. That's our main view right now. We've bought this land, we're securing our assets, we got our access point, we're protecting our soils, our purchases, and we're protecting our survey, right? Our property lines, we've got that in. From here on out, this is the end of this series, because what you decide to do is based off your goals, what you want to do. If you want to have sheep, you start researching sheep. You have a good outer perimeter fence. What do we need internally for sheep? If you want cattle, what do we need for cattle? How are we going to haul it? What other equipment do we need? But you need to do a cost evaluation of each. It's going to cost me this much. This is what the return is going to be. Is it worth it? Can we just let somebody else raise our beef and we raise smaller things as we get started? This is where the rest of my videos should be helpful. Starting small. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes. If you start small, those mistakes are smaller. If you get 30 head right off the bat of cattle and you make a lot of mistakes, it could be devastating. So start small, and you're gonna start researching what you wanna do at each point. But there are a few other things that I think you could do before you knew exactly what you wanted this homestead to look like. I know you have dreams already, or you wouldn't have bought this land. I know you've got some ideas about what you want to do, but I'm going to tell you to pull back the reins and start slow and think about each one of those aspects. But some other things you could do, birdhouses. So we said that this was south, and so that means our southwest is going to be like this. So that is the facing of all of our birdhouse openings. You can build birdhouses and place them everywhere and it not affect anything that you want to do in the future. You can put them on the fence posts. You can put them out in the open on stakes. Birdhouses are a great access assessment to a farm. They will bring in a habitat that will help to keep down flies. Bringing in more wildlife will actually help improve your soils and improve the animals that you want. Now, there are some wildlife like coyotes and bears and things that you want to get rid of, that you want to protect your animals from, which is what the fence is there for. Perhaps you're hunting, you want to build a hunting blind, and there are deer on your property. That's going to be a food source. But there are things that you can do for cheap without going out and buying a trailer load of cattle. Well, there you have it. We are obviously all in the classroom today because there's a big storm right now going on, and it's quieter in here. I can film, but I wanted to show you some of this, draw it out for you, show you the plan, show you the map, and be able to write it on the board what I think you should do and point you in the right direction. There are many choices at this point, but these are some of the things that I think no matter what your choices are, you should be doing these things. That's kind of how I wanted to frame this video. So I hope this video helps you. If you have not seen parts 1 through 3, I do recommend you see that. and most of them are pointed towards prior to buying your land. But even if you've purchased land already, there will be helpful hints and helpful things in those videos, so please check those out. If this is your first time seeing us, please like and subscribe. Follow along with us. We have lots of things from here on out. What to do from this point on, what you do. That's mainly what our channel is about, farming and homesteading. And so that's where we're gonna try to help you through this adventure. Appreciate you watching. Until next time.